The crystal chamber of Harmony Prime had never held so many people. Every seat was filled. Delegates stood along the walls. Some watched from viewing galleries above. The entire galaxy wanted to witness this moment. Daehyun stood at the center platform wearing his formal uniform. Hana stood beside him looking uncomfortable in dress clothes. Behind them, Shira and Krex represented the cooperation between species that made victory possible. The entire crew of the Resilience lined up in perfect formation. Speaker Tevalan floated forward holding a crystal that glowed with inner light. The Star of Unity, the highest honor the Galactic Council could bestow. It had been awarded only 12 times in galactic history. Today would be the 13th, Captain Daehyun. The speaker's voice carried to every corner of the vast chamber. You and your crew faced the void entity when all others had failed. You used wisdom born from surviving a hostile world to accomplish what advanced civilizations could not. You proved that cooperation between species creates strength greater than any single race possesses. Tevalan placed the crystal in Daehyun's hands. The Star of Unity represents the bond between all council members. You have honored that bond beyond measure. The galaxy thanks you. The chamber erupted in applause. Every species present joined in the celebration. Some stamped their feet. Others made sounds of approval in their native languages. The noise was overwhelming. Hana received recognition for her engineering brilliance. Shira and Krex were honored for representing the spirit of cooperation. Each crew member was acknowledged by name. The ceremony lasted for hours as speaker after speaker praised their accomplishment. When the formal ceremony ended, the council held a special session. Daehyun was invited to observe. He watched as Tevalan called for a vote on humanity's status. Earth has been a probationary member of this council for 20 years. The speaker announced. In that time, humans have proven themselves through action rather than words. They fought beside us in the border wars. They shared their knowledge freely. And now they have saved countless billions of lives. Tevalan paused and looked around the chamber. I move that humanity be granted full council membership with all rights and privileges. The vote was unanimous. Every species present supported the motion. Even those who privately feared human influence voted yes. To vote no would be to deny obvious truth. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Daehyun felt emotion swell in his chest. Full membership meant humanity would have a voice in galactic decisions. It meant access to advanced technologies. It meant protection under galactic law. Most importantly, it meant acceptance. Earth was no longer the primitive death world that other species viewed with suspicion. Over the following weeks, requests poured in from across the galaxy. Universities wanted to establish exchange programs with Earth. Scientists wanted to study how hostile environments produced innovative thinking. The Luminary asked humans to teach practical problem-solving. The ShockHFY requested lessons in unconventional warfare. Shira was among the first to make plans. She approached Daehyun one morning with an excited expression. I want to visit Earth, she said. Not as a tourist. I want to live there for a year. Experience your world firsthand. Understand what creates minds like yours, Daehyun smiled. Earth will challenge you. It is not designed for comfort. But you are welcome. We can always use more people willing to learn. Krex made different plans. He accepted a position training Council security forces in human tactical methods. The warrior would teach others what he learned about adaptation and unconventional thinking. My people focus too much on direct combat, he told Daehyun. We need to understand that strength comes in many forms. I will teach them what you taught me. Hana received offers from major engineering firms across the galaxy. Companies wanted her expertise. Governments wanted her knowledge. But she turned them all down. I am staying with the Resilience, she told Daehyun firmly. This crew is my family. Besides, I have a feeling more adventures are coming. She was right to be suspicious. 3 weeks after the ceremony, Tevalan requested a private meeting with Daehyun. They met in a secure chamber away from public eyes. What I tell you now is classified at the highest level, the speaker began. Only council leadership knows this information. The void entity was not unique. Daehyun felt his stomach drop. There are more? Not more entities exactly, but other cosmic threats. Some are physical. Others exist in dimensions we cannot perceive. The Council has survived by avoiding these dangers, by staying in safe regions of space. But avoidance only works temporarily. Why tell me this? Because eventually every threat must be faced. Tevalan said simply. You proved that Deathworld thinking can solve problems peaceful species cannot. The galaxy needs that perspective. Would humanity help prepare for future crises? Daehyun thought about it carefully. This was not a decision he could make alone. But he knew what his answer would be. We will help. But on one condition. We work as equals, not as servants. Our methods may seem strange, but they need to be respected. Agreed. Tevelin extended a hand in the human gesture of agreement. Welcome to the real work of protecting the galaxy. Later that evening, Daehyun stood alone in an observation lounge. Through the window, he could see Earth rotating slowly in the distance. The blue planet looked peaceful from here. No one viewing it from space would guess how dangerous its surface was. Hana found him there just as she always did when he needed to think. Tevelin told you about the other threats. She said, it was not a question. How did you know? Because I know you. And I know that look on your face. We have new orders, do we not? Daehyun smiled slightly. The Resilience received a mission to investigate strange readings near the Galactic Rim. Something that does not match any known phenomena. Of course we did. Hana laughed. Because saving the universe once was not enough, will you come? He asked. I know you could retire now. Live in comfort. Be famous. Hana looked at him like he was crazy. Retire? When there are still problems to solve? When people still need help? That is not the Deathworlder way, Captain. We adapt, we survive. We help others do the same. They stood together watching Earth turn below. The planet that tried to kill its inhabitants every single day. The world that forced humanity to become survivors. That hostile environment created the minds that saved a peaceful galaxy. The Resilience prepared for departure. Crew members checked systems and loaded supplies. Shira would travel with them to the Galactic Rim before continuing to Earth. Krex planned to join them after finishing his first training cycle. As the ship broke orbit and entered hyperspace, Daehyun sat in his command chair and thought about everything that happened. They defeated cosmic horror by thinking like survivors instead of conquerors. They used the universe itself as their weapon. They proved that adaptation beats raw power. Somewhere in the dark between stars, another impossible problem waited, something that would test them in new ways. But Daehyun was not worried. Humanity had spent its entire existence facing impossible odds. This would be no different. Behind them, the galaxy watched and learned. Advanced civilizations studied human methods. Peaceful species tried to understand Deathworld thinking. The entity's defeat changed more than just the immediate threat. It changed how the entire galaxy viewed survival itself. Hana appeared on the bridge with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Daehyun and sat in her usual seat. Ready for the next adventure, Captain? Daehyun smiled. Always. That is what being human means. The Resilience raced toward the Galactic Rim, toward unknown dangers, toward new challenges. The crew did not know what they would find, but they knew they would face it together. They knew they would adapt. They knew they would survive, because that is what Deathworlders do. They survive impossible conditions. They solve unsolvable problems. They help others when no one else can. And when the galaxy needs saving again, they answer the call without hesitation. The Resilience held position at a safe distance from the black hole for 3 full days. Hana monitored every sensor reading. Shira analyzed gravitational patterns. Krex coordinated damage repair. Everyone wanted to be absolutely certain the entity remained trapped before they dared to celebrate. On the 3rd day, Shira looked up from her console with tears streaming down her face. She was smiling and crying at the same time. It is stable, she announced to the bridge. The entity is completely contained within the event horizon. There is no way for it to escape. Not in a million years. Not in a billion. The bridge crew remained silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Others joined. Soon the entire bridge erupted in applause and cheers. People hugged each other without caring about species differences. Krex approached Daehyun and placed a massive hand on the human shoulder. The gesture was gentle despite the warrior's strength. You were right, the ShockHFY said quietly. Force would have accomplished nothing, but thinking like a survivor saved us all. Daehyun shook his head. Not just me. Everyone here contributed. Hana's engineering, Shira's calculations, your coordination. This was a team effort still. You showed us a new way, Krex insisted. My people will remember this lesson. Daehyun composed a detailed report and sent it to the Galactic Council. The transmission included sensor logs proving the entity's containment, complete documentation of their method, and recommendations for future cosmic threats. Then they began the long journey back to Council Space. The voyage home took 6 weeks. During that time, the crew settled into a new routine. But everything felt different. They walked taller, spoke with more confidence. They had accomplished something the entire galaxy believed impossible. Hana spent most days in the engineering bay, repairing damage from their close encounter with the black hole. Shira often joined her, and they talked while they worked. My people valued knowledge above all else, Shira said while calibrating a sensor array. We believed understanding the universe was the highest achievement. But we forgot that knowledge without application is useless. You are being too hard on yourself, Hana replied. The Luminari have contributed incredible discoveries to galactic science. Yes, but when real danger came, our knowledge could not save us. You humans know less about the cosmos than we do. Yet you solved the problem we could not. Because you know how to take what exists and use it in new ways. That is what Deathworlds teach, Hana said. Earth does not let you sit and think. You must act or die, so we learned to think while acting. Krex had similar conversations with the security team. He taught them fighting techniques, but he also taught them when not to fight. The warrior was changing, incorporating human philosophy into his own worldview. The ShockHFY is direct combat, he told them. We face our enemies with weapons drawn and honor held high, but humans taught me that survival matters more than honor. A dead warrior serves no one. When the Resilience entered communication range, messages poured in from across the galaxy. The first was from Speaker Tevel and Captain Daehyun. The ancient Luminari's voice carried weight and emotion. The Council has reviewed your report. We are shocked. We are grateful. We are humbled. You accomplished in weeks what we could not accomplish in millions of years. Humanity has earned the galaxy's eternal thanks. More messages followed. Entire species sent their gratitude. Civilizations that had been marked for destruction now had a future. Parents whose children would have died thanked the human crew for saving them. But not all messages were positive. Hana noticed this while reviewing the communications. She brought her concerns to Daehyun privately. Some species are afraid of us now. She showed him several messages. They worry that if humans could defeat the entity using methods they never considered, what else might we do? Daehyun read through the messages with a frown. These were from the more conservative council members. Species that valued stability above progress. They saw humanity's success as a threat to the established order. Fear is natural, Daehyun said finally. We changed the galaxy's understanding of what is possible. That is always frightening to those who benefit from the old ways. What do we do about it? We prove we can be trusted. We show them we are not conquerors. We help without demanding anything in return. Eventually, actions speak louder than fears. As they approached Harmony Prime, Shira gasped at the sight outside. Hundreds of ships waited to greet them. Vessels from dozens of species formed a corridor leading to the station. Lights flashed in celebration patterns. Communication channels filled with congratulations. I have never seen anything like this, Shira whispered. This is how the galaxy honors its greatest heroes. We are not heroes, Daehyun said quietly. We just did what needed to be done. That is exactly what makes you heroes, Krex replied. True heroism is doing the necessary thing without seeking glory. The Resilience docked at Harmony Prime. As soon as the airlock opened, reporters and dignitaries crowded forward. Everyone wanted to meet the crew that saved the universe. Daehyun felt uncomfortable with all the attention, but he handled it with grace. A formal ceremony was scheduled for the next day. The crew spent the evening resting and processing everything that happened. Hana found Daehyun standing alone in an observation lounge looking out at the stars. Thinking about Earth? She asked always. He smiled slightly. Thinking about how a hostile planet created the minds that saved a peaceful galaxy? There is irony in that. Maybe the galaxy needed Deathworlders all along, Hana suggested. Someone who remembers that survival is not guaranteed. Someone who knows how to fight impossible odds. Daehyun turned to face her. Do you think we changed anything? Really changed it? Or will they forget this lesson as soon as the fear fades? Hana thought about it carefully. Some will forget. Some will resist. But others will learn. Shira learned. Krex learned. Every person on this crew learned that there are different ways to solve problems. That is enough to start. Below them, Harmony Prime glowed with celebration lights. The station had never seen such joy. Across the galaxy, people looked up at the stars and felt safe again. The cosmic horror was contained. Life could continue. But in quiet government offices, some officials worried about what humanity's success meant for the future. The galaxy's power balance had shifted. A young species proved itself more capable than ancient civilizations. That truth would have consequences. For tonight, though, no one thought about consequences. Tonight was for celebration, for remembering that cooperation between species could accomplish the impossible, for honoring the crew that reminded everyone what truly mattered when facing extinction. The black hole appeared on their sensors like a wound in space itself. It pulled in everything around it with impossible gravity. Light bent and twisted near its edge. Matter spiraled inward in a glowing disk of destruction. Daehyun gathered the entire crew in the main assembly room. The time had come to explain the full plan. Everyone needed to understand what they were about to attempt. The quantum generators created a path. He began. The entity is following that path because it thinks the generators are dying stars. But the real destination is not another star. It is that black hole. Shira raised her hand. The entity has encountered black holes before. Why will this time be different? Because those encounters were random. Hana stepped forward to answer. The entity found black holes naturally and consumed what it could before moving on. This time we control the encounter. We will position the entity at the exact point where the black hole's gravity becomes inescapable. Krek stood up from his seat. You mean to trap it using the black hole's own pull? Exactly, Daehyun said. The entity feeds on energy. A black hole represents infinite energy compressed into a single point. Once the entity crosses the event horizon, even it cannot escape. The gravity is too strong, but we must get dangerously close to make this work, Hana added. Closer than any ship has survived before. One mistake and we fall in with the entity. The crew members looked at each other with fear in their eyes, but not one of them suggested turning back. They had all volunteered knowing the risks. They had all lost someone to the entity. This was their chance for justice. How long until the entity arrives? Someone asked. 6 hours. Daehyun checked his data pad. Everyone should prepare. Check your stations. Make sure all systems are ready. What we do next will determine the galaxy's future. The crew dispersed to their duties. Daehyun walked to the bridge with Hana beside him. She looked worried despite her usual confidence. The math is tight, she said quietly. We have less than a 10-second window to escape after pushing the entity toward the event horizon. Even 1 second late and the black hole's gravity will catch us. Then we will not be late. Daehyun replied. You are the best engineer I know. If anyone can pull this off, it is you. Hana smiled slightly. No pressure or anything. The resilience positioned itself between the last quantum generator and the black hole. They were close enough now that the ship's hull groaned under the gravitational stress. Systems flickered as the black hole's influence affected their electronics. Shira monitored the entity's approach from her station. It just consumed the second-to-last generator. Moving to the final one now. Krex checked the weapon systems even though they would not be used. Old habits died hard for a warrior. He looked at Daehyun with newfound respect. I understand now, Krex said. Your people do not win through superior force. You win through superior thinking. We win through adaptation, Daehyun corrected. Force and thinking are both tools. The key is knowing which tool to use. The entity reached the final generator. Through the view screen, they could see it clearly now. A sphere of absolute darkness that made eyes hurt to look at. Space itself seemed to crack around it like broken glass. It is feeding on the last generator, Shira reported. 30 seconds until it finishes. Hana's hands flew across her controls. All quantum generators charged to maximum. Ready to overload on your command, Captain. Daehyun took a deep breath. This was the moment everything depended on. Years of exploring hostile environments had prepared him for this. Every dangerous situation he survived on Earth taught him to stay calm when others panicked. Generator depleted, Shira announced. Entity is looking for the next energy source. The darkness shifted. It moved toward the resilience, toward the black hole beyond, exactly as planned. Wait for it, Daehyun said calmly. Let it get closer. The entity approached. Reality warped around the ship. Crew members felt strange time dilation effects. Some saw their hands move in slow motion. Others felt like their hearts were beating too fast. The entity's presence broke normal physics. Captain. Krex's voice held strain. It is too close, not yet. Daehyun watched the distance measurements. They needed the entity at exactly the right position. Too far and it might escape. Too close and they would die with it. The entity was now between the Resilience and the black hole. Perfect positioning now. Overload all generators. Hana hit the command. Every quantum generator in the network exploded simultaneously. The combined blast created a massive gravitational pulse that pushed the entity backward, toward the black hole. Toward the event horizon, the entity tried to resist. Its darkness spread wider as it fought against the push. But the black hole's gravity was stronger. The event horizon pulled at the entity with irresistible force. Full power to engines. Daehyun ordered. Get us out of here. Hana diverted everything to the engines. Life support, weapons, shields, communications. Nothing mattered except thrust. The Resilience lurched forward, fighting against the black hole's pull with every bit of power the ship possessed. We are slipping, Shira shouted. Gravity is too strong. Dump all cargo! Krex acted without waiting for orders. He purged everything not essential. Equipment, supplies, even furniture. Anything to reduce mass. The ship groaned and shook. Metal screamed under stress. For several terrible seconds, it seemed like they would not make it. The black hole pulled at them with hungry gravity. Then slowly, meter by meter, they began pulling away. The engines screamed at maximum output. The hull temperature rose dangerously high. But they were escaping. Behind them, the entity crossed the event horizon. Its darkness began stretching and tearing. The black hole pulled it apart, breaking it into streams of energy that spiraled inward. For the first time since it awakened, the entity was being destroyed rather than destroying. Shira watched her sensors with wide eyes. It is working. The entity cannot escape. The gravity is too strong even for it. The Resilience finally broke free of the dangerous gravity zone. Hana reduced engine power before they burned out completely. The crew sat in stunned silence, barely able to believe they survived. Did we do it? Someone asked quietly. Daehyun studied the long-range sensors. The entity was completely trapped beyond the event horizon. It would fall forever into the black hole's center, never to escape. Yes, he said simply. We did it. The entity is contained. The crew erupted in cheers. People hugged each other. Some cried. Others laughed with relief. They had faced cosmic horror and won using nothing but human ingenuity and determination. The crystal chamber of Harmony Prime glowed with soft blue light, as representatives from 40 different species gathered in silence. Fear hung in the air like a heavy blanket. Everyone knew why they were there. The void entity had awakened. Captain Daehyun stood near the back of the chamber with his arms crossed. He watched the alien delegates whisper to each other in their various languages. Some looked terrified. Others seemed angry. All of them looked helpless. Beside him, Lieutenant Hana checked her datapad for the third time in as many minutes. Speaker Tevolan rose from the central platform, the ancient luminary being shimmered with inner light as it began to speak. Its voice carried through the chamber without need for amplification. 3 solar systems have fallen. The entity consumed their stars and left nothing but frozen darkness behind. Billions died in the cold. Our most powerful weapons have failed. The ShockHFY fired reality-warping beams that the entity absorbed like water. The Korvax tried to overload it with pure plasma and only made it stronger. A ripple of fear passed through the assembled delegates. Daehyun noticed several species that usually argued with each other now stood united in their terror. The entity was the great equalizer. It did not care about politics or power. It only fed. The Mindwalkers attempted to communicate with it. Tevolan continued. They are all insane now. Whatever intelligence exists within the entity is completely alien to our understanding. It does not think. It does not feel. It only consumes. Hana leaned close to Daehyun and whispered, They are giving up already. Look at their faces, she was right. Daehyun could see defeat in every alien expression. These species had ruled the galaxy for millions of years with their advanced technology and peaceful wisdom. But now they faced something their science could not explain, and their weapons could not harm. They had no answer. We must evacuate the threatened systems. A delegate from the insectoid Thren species spoke up. Save who we can and retreat to the outer rim. Perhaps the entity will feed and then sleep again, and abandon 70 billion lives. Another delegate challenged. The entity moves faster than our evacuation ships. We would save only a fraction. The chamber erupted in argument. Voices overlapped in dozens of languages. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to flee. None had a real plan. Daehyun watched them argue and felt something stir in his chest. He had seen this before. Not on this scale, but the pattern was the same. People facing something they did not understand and freezing in panic. Request permission to speak. Daehyun said it quietly at first, then louder. Request permission to speak. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned toward the human captain. Tevalan gestured for him to approach the center platform. Daehyun walked forward with steady steps. He felt the weight of their stares. Humans were still new to the council. Most species here had barely heard of Earth. You wish to address the council? Tevalan asked. Yes. Humanity requests permission to attempt a solution. Laughter rippled through parts of the chamber. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind that comes from disbelief. A ShockHFY warrior named Krex spoke from his position near the front. With respect, humans have been spacefaring for barely 200 years. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. What could you possibly offer that we have not already tried? Daehyun met the warrior's eyes without flinching. You are right. Our technology is less advanced. But we come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Earth is what you call a death world. We learned to survive things that would destroy most species. Survival is not the same as victory. Krex replied. No, but survival teaches important lessons. Daehyun turned to address the entire council. You have tried to fight the entity directly. You used your most powerful weapons. You attempted to communicate with it. All of these approaches failed because you are thinking like conquerors and scholars. And how do humans think? Tevalan asked with genuine curiosity. Like survivors. When you face a hurricane on Earth, you do not try to fight it. You cannot communicate with it. But you can predict where it will go. You can redirect its path. You can use the storm's own nature against it. The entity is not a storm. Krex said, it is a cosmic horror beyond natural law. Everything follows laws. Daehyun insisted. Even things that seem to break reality. The entity feeds on dying stars. That means it follows patterns. It has needs. Those needs make it predictable. Hana stepped forward to join her captain. We studied the records from the Great Archives. The entity is not alive in the way we understand life. It is a manifestation of entropy itself. It exists to accelerate the heat death of the universe. Your weapons cannot harm it because it is not a creature. It is a force. Then how do we stop a force? A delegate asked. We do not stop it, Daehyun said. We redirect it. We give it what it wants in a controlled way. We lead it to a place where its own hunger will trap it. Silence filled the chamber as the council considered his words. Tevalan floated down from the platform to stand directly in front of Daehyun. You truly believe this can work? I do. We need time to prepare and volunteers willing to risk everything. But yes, I believe we can contain the entity. Tevalan studied the human for a long moment. The ancient being had lived for thousands of years and seen countless species rise and fall. Something in this young captain's eyes reminded it of a truth long forgotten. Desperation sometimes breeds innovation. The council will vote. Tevalan announced. All in favor of allowing humanity to attempt their solution? The vote was not unanimous, but it passed. Many delegates voted yes, not because they believed in the plan, but because they had no other options left. When you are drowning, you grab any hand extended toward you. Daehyun and Hana returned to their ship. The Resilience waited in dock, a small exploration vessel that suddenly carried the weight of the galaxy on its hull. As they walked through the corridors, crew members looked at them with questions in their eyes. Do we have a chance, Captain? One young ensign asked. We always have a chance, Daehyun replied. That is what being human means. Over the next 3 days, volunteers arrived from across the galaxy. Shira came first, a young luminary scientist who lost her entire family when the entity consumed her home system. She brought detailed knowledge of cosmic phenomena and a burning need for revenge. Krex arrived next, surprising everyone. The ShockHFY warrior explained that he could not stand by while others fought. His honor demanded participation, others followed. Engineers, scientists, soldiers, all of them volunteers, all of them knowing they might not return. The Resilience was never designed to carry so many, but Hana modified the ship's systems to accommodate everyone. She worked 18-hour days preparing the vessel for the mission ahead. On the 4th day, they departed. The Resilience left Harmony Prime and set course for the entity's last known position. Behind them, the galaxy watched and waited. Some prayed to their various gods. Others simply hoped. Daehyun stood on the bridge and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there in the darkness, a cosmic horror was feeding. Soon they would find it. Soon they would attempt something no species had ever tried before. They would use the universe itself as their weapon. Hana appeared beside him. Ready, Captain? Daehyun nodded slowly. Ready. Let us show them what Deathworlders can do. The Resilience moved through space like a ghost passing through graveyards. Dead systems stretched out in every direction. Frozen planets orbited cold stars that would never shine again. Cities that once held billions now stood empty and silent, their buildings covered in eternal ice. Shira stood at the observation window with tears running down her face. One of those dead systems had been her home. She pressed her hand against the glass and stared at the darkness outside. Hana approached quietly and stood beside her. I am sorry for your loss, Shira wiped her eyes. My people believed knowledge was the highest virtue. We spent 1,000 years studying the cosmos. All that wisdom, and we could not save ourselves. She turned to face Hana. How does your species cope with constant danger? We adapt, Hana said simply. Earth taught us that survival is not about being the strongest or smartest. It is about being flexible. When the environment changes, we change with it. But you risk your lives for others who are not even your species. Why? Hana thought about the question for a moment. Because isolation is death. Humans learned that lesson the hard way. We almost destroyed ourselves fighting each other before we realized cooperation was the only path forward. Now we apply that lesson to the whole galaxy. Shira nodded slowly. Perhaps that is the difference between peaceful worlds and death worlds. You had to learn unity to survive. We had the luxury of division. On the bridge, Daehyun studied the sensor readings with Krex. The ShockHFY warrior towered over the human captain but listened carefully to every word. The entity is 3 days ahead of us at current speed. Daehyun pointed to a marker on the display. It is moving toward the Kelvin system. 2 billion people live there. Can we reach them in time to evacuate? Krex asked. No, even at maximum speed we would arrive too late. But we can get close enough to observe the entity and prepare our trap. Krex crossed his arms. I still do not understand your plan. My people would face this enemy with weapons drawn. That is the honorable way. Honor does not matter to a force of nature. Daehyun replied without any anger in his voice. A volcano does not care about your bravery. A tsunami does not respect your honor. The entity is the same. It only follows its nature, then teach me to think like a human. Krex said, I'm here to learn. Daehyun smiled slightly. First lesson is this. Never fight what you can redirect. Save your strength for battles that can be won through combat. This is not one of those battles. 2 days later, they reached the edge of the Kelvin system. The entity was already there. Even from a safe distance, its presence made reality feel wrong. Sensors showed impossible readings. Temperature gauges flickered between absolute zero and measurements that should not exist. Time itself seemed to move differently near the darkness. Hana worked frantically at her station. The entity is disrupting normal physics. I cannot get stable readings. It is like trying to measure something that exists in multiple dimensions at once. Keep trying, Daehyun said. We need to understand its feeding pattern. Through the main view screen, they watched the entity approach Kelvin's sun. The star was a bright yellow giant that had burned for billions of years. It would die in minutes. The entity appeared as a sphere of absolute darkness that bent light around itself. As it touched the star, something terrible happened. The light dimmed, not slowly like a sunset, but rapidly like someone turning off a switch. The star's energy poured into the darkness and vanished. Shira gasped. The fusion reaction is stopping. The star is dying. Several crew members looked away. Others stood frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. A star that should have burned for another billion years was going dark in real time. Captain. One of the communication officers spoke with a shaking voice. We are receiving distress calls from the planets. They know what is happening. Daehyun closed his eyes for a brief moment. Tell them we are trying to stop it. Tell them to stay strong. Within an hour, the star was completely dead. Darkness spread across the system. Planets that had basked in warmth for billions of years now faced eternal cold. The temperature would drop rapidly. In days, maybe weeks, everything would freeze. Krex slammed his fist on a console. We should have fought. We should have tried something. Daehyun turned to face him. And what would you have done? Shot at it? The ShockHFY already tried that with your best weapons. Did it work? Krex said nothing. They both knew the answer. We need to focus on what we can do. Daehyun continued. Hana, did you get the readings you needed? Yes. Hana looked exhausted but determined. The entity follows a predictable pattern. It feeds for approximately 40 minutes, then moves to the next star. It always travels in a straight line toward the nearest high-energy source. That is our advantage, Daehyun said. It is predictable. It will follow the path we create. Shira joined them at the central display. I calculated the trajectory to the black hole you mentioned. It is 6 days away at the entity's current speed. We need to lay a path of quantum generators leading directly to it. Can we deploy them in time? Krex asked if we work without stopping. Hana pulled up a schematic showing the generator network. Each device will create an artificial gravity signature that mimics a dying star. The entity will be drawn to them like a predator following a blood trail. And if it realizes the signals are false, Krex challenged, then we die and the galaxy falls. Daehyun said it without drama or fear, but I do not think the entity is intelligent enough to recognize deception. It is a force responding to stimuli, like a shark following vibrations in water. The resilience moved ahead of the entity and began deploying quantum generators. The work was exhausting and dangerous. Each generator had to be placed precisely, or the entire network would fail. Crew members worked in shifts, giving everything they had to complete the task. Hana barely slept. She moved from station to station, checking calculations and adjusting systems. Shira worked beside her, the two of them forming a partnership built on shared purpose. Krex organized the deployment teams with military precision, ensuring every generator went to exactly the right coordinates. On the 5th day, disaster nearly struck. One of the generators malfunctioned during deployment. The quantum field destabilized and created a feedback loop that threatened to destroy the entire network. Hana suited up and went outside the ship to fix it manually. She drifted through space with only a thin suit between her and the void. Her hands worked quickly, replacing damaged components while the generator sparked with dangerous energy. Hurry! Daehyun's voice came through her helmet. The entity is 3 hours away, almost done. Hana connected the final wire and the generator stabilized. Network is secure. When she returned to the ship, Shira hugged her tightly. You are insane. That could have killed you. Hana smiled tiredly. Welcome to being human. We do impossible things because someone has to. On the 6th day, all generators were in place. The resilience moved to a safe distance and activated the network. Artificial gravity signatures bloomed across space, creating a path that led straight to the black hole. Daehyun watched the sensors. Come on, take the bait. For several minutes, nothing happened. The entity continued on its original path. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, it began to turn. The darkness shifted direction, drawn toward the false signals. It is working, Hana whispered. The entity moved toward the first generator. Reality warped around it as it approached. Then it was feeding, consuming the artificial gravity signature with the same hunger it showed for real stars. When it finished, it moved to the next generator, then the next. Following the path exactly as planned, Daehyun allowed himself a small smile. Now we lead it to its prison.